everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into something, well, pretty personal for a lot of us, I think, prayer and fasting. We're going deep with this book I have here, Prayer and Fasting, Unlocking Heaven's Blessings. Powerful title, right?
It is.
And it's by Bishop Joshua Bowie, Sr. Now, this is a man who knows what he's talking about. He's been leading a church down in Texas for, get this, over 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's got some serious experience with this stuff.
He does. And, one of the things that struck me about Bishop Bowie's book was how he connects his own journey to this, well, almost universal practice, right? I mean, prayer and fasting, they pop up all over the place. Different cultures, different religions, all throughout history. It's like this fundamental human need to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
You're right. And, it's funny you mention the historical side of things because the book actually talks about Daniel, from the Bible.
Yeah.
And how he kept praying even when it was against the law. Talk about dedication. Right.
Seriously.
That's some next level commitment.
Yeah. And that's something Bishop Bowie really gets at in the book. Like he really wants us to kind of rethink how we approach prayer and fasting. Like take prayer, for instance. He's not talking about just, a laundry list of things you want.
Right, right.
It's more about like really connecting with God, right? Being honest, asking for guidance, building that relationship.
Yeah, I like that because it's easy to get caught up in the formality of it all.
Exactly.
Like, this is serious business.
Right.
But the book really brings out the emotional side, the personal side, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and that's where fasting comes in, right?
Right.
Bishop Bowie, he's very clear. It's not about dieting. It's about, like, intentionally hitting the pause button on all the distractions.
Okay.
Cutting out the noise, so to speak, so you can become more, I guess, spiritually sensitive.
Wow, I like that. Tuning out the noise to actually become more aware.
Exactly.
Which is kind of ironic, given how we live.
Yeah.
Instant gratification everywhere you look.
All the time.
And fasting is, well, it's the opposite of that, isn't it?
It really is.
But speaking of powerful effects, the book mentions there's a lot of fasting that goes on in the Bible.
Oh, absolutely. It pops up all over the place.
Some pretty big moments too, right?
Yeah. Huge moments, yeah. You've got Moses, right, fasting and praying for his sister Miriam to be healed. Hannah pleading for a child. I mean, talk about desperate prayers. Even Jesus, right, 40 days in the wilderness. Bishop Bowie's point is this stuff, it's always mattered.
It really makes you think about how it applies to us now,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think is so cool about this book.
Okay.
Because Bishop Bowie doesn't just leave it in the past. He's like, look, this is how this stuff can actually help you today. Like he talks about how fasting can help you focus,
Oh, great.
get clarity.
Which, let's be honest, I think that's something we could all use a little more of, right?
100%.
Especially, our listeners. They're always looking to learn and grow.
Absolutely. They want to cut through the noise.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, like, thinking clearly. It's also about that self-discipline, right?
Yeah.
We live in a world where everything's like, I want it now, give it to me.
Right.
But fasting, it's like you're choosing to be uncomfortable, and that can be really powerful.
Yeah, it's like building a muscle almost.
Exactly.
It's that self-control muscle.
Yeah. Now, one thing I do want to mention, the book does talk about some of the physical benefits of fasting,
Right.
which, people are into that.
Sure.
But Bishop Bowie's very clear, like, that shouldn't be the main reason you're doing it.
Okay.
It's got to be about the spiritual side first and foremost. And, of course, always check with your doctor.
Always a good idea.
Yeah.
We're not giving medical advice here.
No, not at all.
This is about, deepening that connection with yourself and, well, something bigger, if that's what you believe.
Exactly.
And, speaking of going deeper with it, I was really struck by how Bishop Bowie breaks down all the different ways you can fast.
Oh, yeah. He gets it
Because it's not just like, bread and water for everyone, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You've got your absolute fast, which is like the hardcore version, no food, no drinks except water.
The real deal.
The real deal.
Yeah.
But then he talks about partial fasts where maybe you're giving up certain foods or certain meals.
Right, or like social media.
Oh, yeah. He even talks about fasting from things like social media.
It's about finding what works for you.
Which, again, really resonates with what we talk about a lot on this show.
Absolutely.
That personalized approach, right?
It's not about fitting into some box.
Exactly.
It's your journey.
Exactly. And the point is, whether you're fasting from, food or Instagram or whatever it is,
Right.
it's about creating that space for reflection, for that spiritual growth.
It's like hitting the reset button.
Exactly.
And speaking of support systems, because I know sometimes this stuff can be, well, kind of lonely, right?
Yeah.
Bishop Bowie, he has a whole chapter on how to make these practices stick,
Oh, I love that.
like how to make them part of your life.
Sustainable.
Exactly. And one of the things he talks about is the power of community,
Oh, so important.
like finding a prayer partner,
Yeah.
joining a group, maybe even getting your family involved.
Yeah. I mean, think about that. Like seeking something greater together.
Right. It's not just you by yourself anymore.
It's so powerful. Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about
A
today.
lot to unpack there.
Definitely. We talked about the history of prayer and fasting, how powerful they can be, and how even today we can bring those ancient practices into our lives. And I think the big takeaway, and this is straight from Bishop Bowie himself, it's not about following some strict set of rules. It's about finding your own path to connecting with yourself, finding clarity, figuring out what your purpose is. So if you're interested in learning more, and I bet you are, check out Prayer and Fasting, Unlocking Heaven's Blessings by Bishop Joshua Bowie Sr. It's a powerful read.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time.